What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 99 of the Finale Podcast. That's right, we're already approaching 100. One more episode to go till that. Today I'm joined by Nahum and Yossef to preview week 8 of the NFL regular season and also recap week 7. So, guys, how you been?
We've been good, man. I appreciate you having us on. Long time no speak.
Yes,
Hey,
sir.
I'm excited to talk some football. I appreciate you having me on too.
Of course. Yossef, just want to say on the platform, of course, happy birthday.
Thank you.
You want to share the age? Let me guess.
We're not doing this.
All right. You don't have to share, but like, I feel like I'm not even gonna say it, but I think I know what it is because you are close to me in age, so I know what it is. I'm not even gonna share. I'm not gonna do you like that, but you're not even that old for real. But let's just let's get into it. Let's get into the pod.
It's like it.
That's what we're here for. So one surprising or disappointing performance from week 7. I'll get mine out the way first.
I think you're muted, brother.
I appreciate it. What's the last thing you guys heard?
Nothing.
Yeah, we didn't hear anything.
Okay, so just where we're starting. Okay, so let's do surprises and disappointments from week 7. So I'll start it off. I'm gonna say the 49ers are my pick. I would say they're a little bit of a surprise and a disappointment because, obviously at this point into the season, we're not expecting them to be this poor. And they've just been really inconsistent all year. And of course, that comes down to injuries. They just lost Brandon Ayuk to, the ligament injury for the whole season. And he already was off to a mediocre start after getting that big payday, which doesn't help. And then Debo, he has his injury issues. Brock Purdy's turning the ball over. It's not working out. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey being out doesn't help. Just defending the NFC as they're the NFC champions, and you don't want to see that how they start this whole year with this record. I think they're hovering around 500, if not below.
Yeah.
So I think that's just pretty disappointing. It's not the 49ers standard that they have established since, well, these last few years, really largely in the Shanahan era. So I think they're a disappointment for sure. I was just watching the game, brief moments of the game versus the Chiefs. The Chiefs don't look all that impressive, but like you can see the Chiefs have a little bit of that edge to them. Whereas the 49ers, they're still trying to figure it out. Yeah, the 49ers are 3-4 right now. They just look mediocre as an offense. And initially I was like impressed by the Vikings beating them, but I'm becoming less and less like, okay, that was a good win for the Vikings because of how like bad the 49ers are looking as a unit. I mean, their defense isn't the same. Fred Warner, has put up really good stats, I would say, this year, but just overall the defense, they've been picked apart in many games this year. And then offensively, yeah, just even though they've had good performance, I think Jordan Mason's been a bright spot. I think in certain areas, Juwan Jennings has helped out. Kittle, I will give him credit as well. But yeah, Purdy and just that whole unit, it's just been disappointing to see how they've all kind of worked out together. So they're my disappointment from really not just the performance from week 7, but just in general, how they started the season. I wasn't expecting them to beat the Chiefs, but I was just disappointed with like they don't have that fire to them that they've shown in the last few years.
Yeah, for sure. And it doesn't help that Brandon Ayuk is injured as well. So, kind of adding CMC you mentioned as well. It is kind of like that year of hell for the 49ers, but usually Shanahan can make do with what he has. And you're right. I agree. It's a little bit of a disappointment that Shanahan hasn't been able to really, build his defense as dominant as maybe we're used to. So that is a huge deal. Their defense has regressed a little bit, but their offense is also not as potent. A disappointment of mine, for me was Houston. I think CJ Stroud put up the lowest yardage game of his career thus far against a team in the Packers where cross conference matchups. You don't see them only once every 4 years or so. So um, I think that matchup was really unique for CJ Stroud, but that defense was on him, and he underperformed without Nico Collins. He wasn't able. I don't know if it was. It's a mix of the offensive line not being able to, and we talked about the offensive line going into this season, and we talked about how the rest of their units, their D line, their DBs, their wide receiver group, even their running back group was all pretty good and pretty depthful. But in this case, I think their O line is not giving him enough time to throw, and receivers that aren't big, 6'4", 230 pounds or whatever, if you don't have that guy that's going to create separation that quickly and you can catch him downfield, I think it's been a little hard for CJ, but disappointing back-to-back weeks, really. Barely making it out of Buffalo last week, and then losing this week.
I do want to add, do you know CJ Stroud's fantasy points number for like halftime? I have him as my starting quarterback. I reached on him this year too. Man's dropped 1 point during the half.
Yeah, I didn't know
So,
what you were thinking there. He has no rushing upside.
I like the weapons. I like the weapons.
Yeah, I
So,
agree. I agree. Yeah, for sure. CJ Stroud has been having maybe a sophomore slump. I still believe in his talents, but it's just maybe it's the O line, and it really could just be the O line not giving him enough time to make his throws.
yeah, it's definitely the line. He doesn't have time to even process the game, and that's his unique ability, I feel like.
Hmm.
Are we just doing disappointments right now, or is it disappointments and surprises?
Just disappointments, I think.
Okay.
No, both.
Um,
You can do either.
oh, either or. Okay, so
Yeah.
I was gonna go disappointment, but if I can do either or, I'm gonna go surprises, and I'm gonna go Sunday Night Football, Steelers, Russell Wilson, letting
Mm.
him cook. People were questioning Mike Tomlin's decision, um, even calling for his job, for doing this decision, and he proved everybody wrong. And then he drops the bomb, and he says like, "That's why they compensate me because
Yeah.
I make these decisions." And I just want to say Russell Wilson looked amazing. He looked like back in like 2014 with the Seahawks. Like he was on time, on rhythm. Yeah, the first two drives were a little clunky, but after that, it was smooth sailings. And it opened up George Pickens. It opened up the run game. I didn't even know Najee could do half the things he could do. The defense has always been solid, so that was a surprise. And we'll see what happens. I think the Jets are a little discombobulated on both sides of the ball, so
Yeah.
we can't take that win like wow they're gonna do big things, but that was very surprising for sure.
I
Yeah.
think a positive too is like I don't think we've seen the Jets allow that many like points this season, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, what was it like? What was the final score of the game? Like 40 something?
37 to something.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just they were ticking all night. And like you mentioned with Najee, like he had a big game. I think if Russell Wilson continues to play like this, like there's no way Justin Fields is going to get back in there, which is unfortunate. But I mean, like their offense just looks so much better when you have a
Yeah.
quarterback like that. You know what I mean? And that's just in general for any team. Because rushing quarterbacks are cool. You can win with Justin Fields, but like your ceiling is severely limited when you're not able to get those other guys involved. And that's where the frustration from someone like George Pickens comes in and Najee Harris. Like that's sort of like that brings the team morale down. That's like not
Hmm.
toxic. It's not toxic in a way, but in a way it is because it kind of brings in everybody else and that the team suffers as a whole. So I like
Right.
Russell Wilson. I knew he had something left in him even after the Denver situation. So I'm glad that like they had the faith in him to kind of like, even though it might not have seemed like the right time to bring him in with the way the team was playing as a whole, it seems like it's the right decision. And yeah, that's credit to the coaching staff. And I mean, I'm glad that Mike Tomlin said what he said because I mean, he is the guy that's paid to make those decisions, and he has led this team to winning records for I mean, how many years now, right? So he knows what he's doing. So it was
Yeah.
definitely something to be skeptical over, but I mean, it's proven to be the right decision so far. But yeah,
Thanks. Yeah, that was my surprise too, Nahum. You stole it. I think it's really noteworthy just because have one of the best, records coming into this week, and it's just their defense is dominant, but they have a guy who can help them put up 30 plus points. Like, wow. Like, that changes the Steelers, ceiling, like you mentioned.
For sure. And I just can't help but like notice Russell Wilson, like when he throws that deep ball, like it's like a perfect spiral. It's perfect. And like the touch he has on the ball,
Hmm.
the way he can hit the field that Justin Fields can't. It's noticeable for sure. But I heard Tomlin say that Fields will be playing this season too. So maybe they do. I don't
Interesting.
know what they're gonna do, but and then on the other side of it, just like the Jets just don't have the grit. They don't have the it. They don't. It looks like they are just done with the season already, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Probably because they got rid of their coach, and the coach wasn't that big of a deal or an issue. So, I mean, there's just no fight in that team. You can see it like in the fourth quarter. So,
Yeah, no,
yeah,
the Jets, it's funny, they traded Salah, they brought in Devontae, and like all of this kind of like, I think it's just the defense wasn't the problem, it was the hallmark of the team,
it
trading
looks
away
worse
the
now.
trading away the defense. Firing the defensive leaning head coach. Like, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? Now, like you mentioned, they lack that physicality, that toughness. To really you make your presence feel felt on the and 2 years ago, even last year, like they were one of the like most stingy defenses. Hardest, toughest playing. So they really lost that component. But I hope they can do better. I think you're muted, Marcos.
Yeah, one moment.
Okay, so the Jets are worse, or the Steelers? Good win for the Steelers or bad loss by the Jets? The real question.
Bad loss for the Jets because they get Devontae Adams. It was supposed to be like this was the Jets game seven, low key.
Facts,
You know
facts,
what I'm saying?
actually.
This was the Jets like, yo, Adams is coming to save the city. Like Aaron Rodgers is gonna get it down pat. Garrett Wilson now has space. Brees Hall
Right.
has space, and they looked competent for the first half, and then after the second half, like things just started going like not their way, and it started crumble. And a lot of it is on Aaron Rodgers and his like immobile. He's not that mobile no more. So like I think there was a play he threw to Conklin. It's a fourth down. He throws it short of the sticks, but that's because he's scared of getting hit because he's not mobile. And it's like you don't
Mm,
make that throw. You don't make that throw while the game is on the line. And we've seen countless of times like Jets, Aaron Rodgers, fourth quarter. Like these guys are in games most of the time, and they have the ball. They haven't been able to kill their opponent on that last drive. We've seen it with the
right.
Vikings. We've seen it with the Broncos. We just seen it with the Steelers. Like there has to be a point where accountability has to settle in for Aaron Rodgers, and he needs to make the plays. And now that his best friend's here, it has to happen. So yeah, that was more of a disappointment on the Jets for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can I can agree with that. I think the offense probably took a step back, but I think it's also just acclimation period bringing in a new player, even though they have chemistry. It's still a new system and everything like that. But they're definitely running out of time for all that if they actually have hopes to do anything this season. But I think it's kind of dwindling with already having what, 5 losses.
Yeah.
The season's it's probably not it's not
Yeah.
going to go in their favor. But it's like, what do you do from here if you're the Jets too? Because like, how long do you want to commit to this Aaron Rodgers era? Like if you
Right.
haven't found much success out of it, it's brought in your head coach to be fired. Like, what even is the next move? Do you make a bigger decision and go like higher up and address those positions? Like, I don't know what you want to do here because you have so many assets, so many weapons on both sides of the ball, but it's not worked out. I don't know what the next move is from this point, but it's going to be intriguing because like mean, you just brought in Devontae, who's commands money, and it's like I don't know how they want to move forward. They've tried the quarterbacks. They've went with the rookies. They went with the proven veteran like Rodgers. I don't know what the next move is for them, honestly, but their defense is still like it's top 10 in the league. It's been top 10, but it's really about just putting it all together into team success. And I don't know who's gonna be able to bring that to them. I think they just gotta definitely hit on their next coach hiring because I think that's definitely a struggle of like, yeah, you can bring in a defensive head coach who Robert Saleh is, and he was so successful in San Francisco, but it affects the team if you're not able to find that offensive coordinator that really gets the most out of you. So I think you want to find an offensive minded head coach. That's really the name of the game right now. And I could see them getting someone like a Ben Johnson or like a Bobby Slowick next season. If
Yeah.
they decide to go in that route. But like they could also, be the type of team that go for like a Bill Belichick and make like that moves that's kind of like that, even though that might not be the right fit for them. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But moving on to the league news for this week. So, as we're recording this today, Wednesday, October 23rd, the Kansas City Chiefs just acquired DeAndre Hopkins in a trade with the Tennessee Titans. So, kind of want to get your thoughts on how he's going to fit into this team that's already undefeated, but offensively, they have had some injuries. Their weapons are not the best. So, what do you guys think DeAndre Hopkins will bring to this team in Kansas City?
Man, I think this is a showcase of organization management and what superb organization management looks like. Um, the Chiefs going on, they've been in the last what five Super Bowls or something like that. It's or what AFC Championship games. It gets to a point where it's like you don't get there, by just having great play on the field. You get there by looking 2 to 3 years in advance, having a great quarterback. Let me start with that. You do that with having a great quarterback, and then also you pair that with being able to look a couple years into the future and plan your defense and plan your offense, and have the coaching staff on the same page. And it shows once again where you see a team that is the defense is the one leading the Chiefs right now to this amazing record that they've started with so far. And how do you continue to keep that going? And when you see something promising, is by investing in what's lacking. And what's lacking here is obviously the wide receiver room. Hollywood gets out early this season, follows that up with Rice getting injured by his own quarterback a couple weeks in. You have the defense and the quarterback to make another championship run. But you don't have the wide receivers anymore. So being able to put some finances in and some trade assets in to get a wide receiver one at this time, I think is a fantastic move. But I do have questions about how good DeAndre Hopkins, not how good he can be, but how much of a reliable asset he is, as he also has an injury history himself. So it's like you bring in another guy that's a little bit older. Do you run the risk of him getting injured? I think that's the only risk that they're really inheriting here. But ultimately, I absolutely love the move. Adding a receiver to this offense makes them a championship, contender.
Yeah, they traded a late round pick too, so it's really just like, I mean, it can only help you if he's able to kind of give you not even just the elite DeAndre Hopkins that we have known for so many years in Houston, but like just a little bit of reliability that they sometimes miss out on. But
Right.
regardless of that, I mean, they're still capable of winning games. So it's just really a sort of no harm, no foul type of move, I would say, for Kansas City.
I think it's a low risk, high reward, right?
Exactly, yeah.
I would say they were missing that alpha X receiver that you can throw the ball up and DeAndre or whatever receiver will catch that ball. I think Juju Smith can't fit that role. He's more of a slot guy, even though he's a little slower. Rashee Rice is obviously out, and all the other guys is out. So like having that guy on the opposite side, far right or left side of the field, where Mahomes knows if Kelsey isn't open, DeAndre will get that 50-50 ball. So
hmm
that's a clutch trade only for a fifth round pick. I think that's great. So they'll be just fine now for sure.
Yeah. Um, so we mentioned, of course, this trade. So we're
going into now buyers and sellers with the trade deadline approaching. So the Chiefs are obviously the sort of team that's a buyer, being a competitive team, really trying to raise your your um your ceiling, and that's what they can do with this move. Regardless of if it helps or not, they're already a good team. So, what would you guys pick as some other teams that are either buyers or sellers at this point in the season with the trade deadline coming up?
Yeah, so I would probably lean to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And for the simple fact that their defense is pretty solid. They have a solid unit, even
As
though
buyers?
yeah, I think they're gonna be buying.
Okay.
Just because they have a solid unit on defense. Their offense looks great until both of the receivers are out. So I think they're going to go in the market and try to get a receiver to salvage the season because Baker Mayfield cannot be throwing to just Sterling Shepard and Kate Allen. Um, so yeah, I think they might try to grab a Deontay Johnson or something to fill that role. I think they would be great buyers, and I think they should do it. I also think the Rams could be sellers, especially if they lose this game on Thursday against the Vikings. They have nothing to play for at this point, and they need assets. They've been one of the teams that have given away their assets for winning out like players and just settings. And so for them to sell probably like a Cooper Cup, even though they have a Puka Nacua, so they're not sweating it, they can trade Cooper Cup for a second, and they will be just fine in the long haul or even a Matthew Stafford. I've seen reports to the Vikings and Giants, and getting off that contract, going for a newer, younger look, could re-energize that team. So those are two teams I have.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree with the second one. When it comes to buyers, I think a team that needs to buy is a team that suffered an injury on defense last week, and their defense has maybe lost an edge, and that's the Detroit Lions. I think losing Aiden Hutchinson not this past week, but the week before, we didn't know what that would really amount to the defense. The defense as a whole is not the unit that their identity is built off of, but that toughness that oozes out of the head coach is essentially what brings the defense up a notch. And that was partly due to their coach, but also partly to Hutchinson. So losing him last week, I think really sucked, but you need to go out there, be aggressive. You know, your time is now against the Vikings, even like they were able to generate some traffic on Darnold when they needed to. But there was times where Darnold was able to sit in the pocket, take a step up and deliver the pass, especially in that red zone, that pass to Justin Jefferson. I don't think a week ago, the same Sam Darnold would have had that luxury in the red zone. Christian Darrisaw is a beast though. In that same game, he was able to block one offensive lineman and then do a 360 and catch another dude going around the line and blocked both guys in one play. Ridiculous from the left side, but but regardless, Aiden Hutchinson would have played on the nine side, on the right side, and what I'm getting at is there was a lack of edge on that defense, just the ferocity, maybe just over the top talent wasn't there with Hutchinson, and it was felt. I think that ultimately the Vikings game it didn't have to be that close, and they allowed the Vikings to creep back in. If you trade for that piece, I've heard Myles Garrett is on the table. I don't know if you're willing to afford going out there and grabbing a piece like that, but imagine if Detroit Lions had Myles Garrett coming at you. I think that would stamp them as as the favorite in the NFC, and that's what they have to really fight for. So the Lions have to be buyers.
I don't think a big name like Max Crosby or Myles Garrett would be a great fit for him. Yeah, for the short term, but long term with all the cap salary and all that, and then giving away first round picks,
Hmm.
I would probably go for somebody like an Azeez Ojulari off the Giants for like a third round pick. Low,
Hmm.
it's low risk, low cost, but high rewards or something like that. But a Myles
Yeah.
Garrett's gonna be at least two first round picks and some more stuff. So.
Yeah, you are right. I think up to one first round pick is doable, but ultimately, even if it means renting for 1 year and just getting an expiring contract, who's also really nice, I think that is the combination that they should shoot for because that will provide value. I think this year's their year. If they don't capitalize, the window might be shut. So last year they had a chance, their window was open. This year they have an even better opening. In the NFL, windows open and close pretty quick. So it's like you can't lollygag and think about future picks when you have future picks to get this guy into the building for the year that you've probably the best year in franchise history. Like, so yeah, that's kind of where I stand on the Lions being buyers.
Yeah, I could see the Lions get like a Zadarius Smith, sort of a veteran sort of guy that can come in and be pretty good off the edge. That's, gonna require you maybe trading like a fifth or sixth round pick, like the Chiefs did for Hopkins. Somebody that's not gonna take too much um of those, salary considerations because they are a young team. They will have to pay players. They already paid Amon-Ra St. Brown, and obviously guys are gonna get paid soon as well. So I think that'd be more of the approach. And it's got to be something that's going to work, like I think I was listening to Dan Campbell's press conference going into the Vikings game, and he was just basically saying that same thing. Like they obviously have a culture that they're building in Detroit that, everybody really knows about with the grit and all that stuff. So who's going to fit
Right.
that culture while also who's going to come in and not affect their team building down the road? Yeah, Max Crosby and Myles Garrett are elite players that could come to really good teams, but I don't think it's realistic at the trade deadline with what sort of price that is being asked of
Yeah.
other teams. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, I do see what you're saying. In
that's really,
mid-season, yeah, it does. It looks like a stretch.
but Minnesota is a team you mentioned. I would say definitely defensively, I could see Minnesota making a move. I've seen Dexter Lawrence, getting thrown
Mhm.
out there a lot. He's like, nah,
Give me
but
two first, buddy.
but I mean, Vikings kind of historically, probably since not historically, but since Linval Joseph haven't really had an interior guy and that can really get to the quarterback. I think Harrison Phillips has been elite, which is why he got contract extension. But somebody next to him, I think, could really do the Vikings well.
I've heard
Um,
Jeffrey Simmons off the Titans for you guys.
exactly. I think that's doable too. He's a veteran. I think that's somebody like even the Lions could want to target. So I like him. I like for Dallas to make a move too. I feel like Dallas has struggled without Micah Parsons. I think they could go after somebody. Their defense is allowing so many yards, and they're another team like the 49ers who haven't looked the same this year. So it'll be interesting to see how they match up this Sunday. But
Mhm.
Dallas could definitely be a team that targets somebody, especially in the front seven area. Could even see them getting a linebacker in. I could see Washington make a move. I know they were rumored in the Brandon Ayuk sweepstakes, if those even existed this offseason, with Ayuk going to ASU playing with Jaden Daniels in college. I could
Mhm.
see something where they want to bring in a guy on offense to help them out as well, even though their offense is obviously flying with Cliff Kingsbury. I think they could bring in somebody that's a little bit more proven alongside McLaurin and those guys over there. Um, could see Baltimore making a move. And these are buyers. So going to the
Yeah,
sellers aspect of things, let's see here. I think Nahum mentioned Carolina with Deontay Johnson, right? Earlier.
for sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
yep, that and then the Rams too.
Yeah, the Rams as well. The Rams, of course, I think it comes down to this week, like you said, what happens in this game. I don't think they should move on from Cooper Cup just yet. I don't think Nakua is ready for that responsibility. Personally, I mean, you saw with the Vikings, they didn't give Justin Jefferson at number one. I mean, he was number one, you know what I mean? But they still had Thielen around for a little bit. I think you need Cup around until maybe after this year for Nakua, especially with Nakua not even being able to play in year two until mid-season. I think you kind of want to have him around a little bit before you move on. But if the asking price, if they meet like this asking price of whatever, what are they asking for? Like a high
Second.
second, yeah, that's pretty high. I think then it's like okay, you have to really consider it. But we'll see what they decide. Um, who else? I'm looking here. New Orleans, man, they're very. I mean, they're struggling. New Orleans is struggling. Cleveland is struggling. Those teams could all be sellers, and teams could definitely want to go in and acquire those guys. We already saw Buffalo making a move for Amari Cooper. Um,
Yeah, fantastic.
Detroit, yeah, Atlanta could make a move. I could see it. Their weapons aren't that crazy. Um, in actuality, not so much on paper, but like when it actually comes down to it.
Yeah, yeah, for
Uh,
sure. I agree with that.
Ooh, Green Bay, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. Green Bay. I mean, their defense is looking good, but maybe they want to get somebody that's kind of like really, really good in the front seven. Because they already have those defensive backs who are, getting their hands on the ball with regularity. Uh,
Hmm.
ooh, who else? Who else? Who else? Kansas City made a move. I could see Philly make a move for sure, but I don't know if a move is really going to change what's going on for Philly. I think that's more of like a cultural sort of issue, if anything. But they could also bring in somebody defensively. The
For
Jets, I
sure.
mean, the Jets just it's not going to work. Whatever the Jets do. Uh, uh, Houston potentially Houston, especially on the defensive side. I would
Yeah.
say. I could see them making a move. I mean, I think
Just
they're
signed
really
Lamar David
who?
or Devin. They just signed Devin White.
Oh, I saw that. Again,
Mm.
he didn't play at all this season, so who knows what he's really going to bring them though. So it's like I could see them making a trade for somebody that could really anywhere on the defense. I think they're not even that great in the secondary right now. I think just top to bottom. You mentioned CJ Stroud's second sophomore slump. I think Yosef. I think this just whole team in general, a little bit of a sophomore slump. But they are 5-2. But it's like an opportunity for you to kind of recognize your faults and your flaws and kind of go out there and make a move. I think more so on the defensive side, even though they are missing Nico Collins offensively, I think they'll be fine. Joe Mixon had a really good day against the Packers, so running game will be fine. I think CJ Stroud will get it going. Pretty bad game on Sunday, but I think just defensively, even though they have D'Amico Ryans, I think their team just needs a little bit of a newer energy. They lost Grenard, Grenard's one of the best pass rushers in the league. I didn't even realize that when they were just losing him for Daniel Hunter, but it's like a like for like replacement if you really think about it. And then losing Blake Cashman, I think affects them as well. So getting somebody that could help them out on defense would be good. But moving on, Vikings Rams preview. So that's Thursday night game. Vikings, of course, suffered their first loss of the season to the Lions, which was really a back and forth game, but the Lions responded to adversity, losing. They were losing like what by 10 points at one point. Came back, stormed back. Really, it's just like I think they're the best team in the league. But before we go into the Vikings Rams preview, let's just talk a little bit about what you guys saw from that Vikings Lions game.
Yeah, I liked how KLC comes in with the game plan always. What I don't like sometimes is his inability to adjust the game plan depending on how they adjust to your original game plan. And I think that was the name of the game here. The Lions came on, pretty slow. We were able to get the jump on them like we usually do. By we, I mean the Vikings. And ultimately, when they stormed back, we didn't have, and this happens in multiple games now for the Vikings, is they get caught on their flat-footed, and then they don't really have another backup plan. They just sit there and wait that they hope that they can withstand the storm till the end of the game. And that's been not biting them in the butt yet, but I think that's what happened here in the Lions game where the Lions really put it on them after the initially going up 10-0, and they weren't able to respond until that drive later in the fourth quarter. And that was an amazing drive. And that shows some, like ability to adjust and your players to play up to the moment. But ultimately, I felt like it was a lack of being able to make adjustments by KLC. And ultimately, they grew a lead that was too, I think it was too hard. I think it wasn't just the lead that they caught, but they also had like the matchup, just the game plan was superior. So ultimately, they took us over. So that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the game, not being a fan of either team. I know I was with one of my friends, he's a Lions fan, and just watching their emotional roller coaster throughout the game for him, definitely like it just shows how the Lions and Vikings are gonna go at it even next meeting, and just how many times there was just I feel like there was just it was whoever could actually like convert on third downs and execute would win the game. And essentially I think the stats show it. I think the Lions converted more on third downs than the Vikings, so they ended up winning it. I think, having Jameer and Monty, their O line was a little beat up, and to be able to still run it down a really good Vikings run defense definitely showed that, they're like that. JMO didn't even, he got like one catch. So for them to move on that Vikings defense was was very surprising. And I actually read an article. It said that Ben Johnson was preparing for the Vikings during the Cowboys game by having complex plays, and having like the offensive lines run plays, and you've seen this whole like pass play with the O linemen and just really complex stuff. So Brian Flores could stress about how to cover everything. And then when he played Brian Flores, he had a very simple game plan, and it picked apart the Vikings defense. So I think Brian Flores probably overthought it a little bit watching the tape between the Cowboys and Lions, and I think that just speaks on coaching, to be honest.
Completely agree.
Yeah, I think the Vikings could have put it away the second to last drive, but that 3-and-out definitely affected them and giving the Lions another opportunity to really drive down the field. I think that was way too easy as well, how they just played that zone and just I don't like when teams just like basically say come at us and we're not going to allow a big play, but we're just going to get you into field goal range when it's a 2 point game. I don't know. I don't think they did themselves any favor, or is a 1 point game rather. I don't think they did themselves any favor with how they ended the game, but give the Vikings credit for how they came back into the game. I think they eventually grew into the game a little bit once they faced that adversity. But yeah, the Lions they're a legit team offensively and even defensively without Aiden Hutchinson. I think they still were impressive. Brian Branch was really like insane in that game. So they still have some playmakers as well. So going into this Vikings Rams preview, like what are you guys looking to see in this game out of the Vikings responding from that loss, quick turnaround, of course, which is always good after a loss? So, what are you guys kind of expecting to see out of the Vikings in this game on the road?
I want to see energy. I want to see them like punch first. I know that they're coming on a short week, 2 games across country to go to the Rams. And I actually heard a stat saying that whoever plays the Lions that following week they lose, and it's probably because of that O line and they push people around and they fatigue them. So I want to see energy right away. I don't want to see Kyron Williams get 8 yards per carry. I think that's going to be a big red flag. I think that D line's tired, the defense is tired. So, and I guess the O line's probably going to be tired too because the Lions come at you, and yeah, that's what I've noticed. It's so weird. Like, and I have money on the Vikings for this week, but like seeing that stat that whoever plays the Lions, they automatically lose the following week is alarming.
Mm.
So,
Automatically, it's probably a stretch, but
hey,
I do.
that's
Yeah, that's what the stats say, right? Yeah, I think I'm not that worried about them coming out kind of, jumping on the lead, but I do agree with you. The key is going to be limiting Kyron Williams. Kyron Williams is the heart and soul of that offense, and if you're able to slow down that offense, you'll have to start with Kyron Williams. So if you can do that, I think that's the main name of the game ultimately. On defense, Matthew Stafford's O-line is not that good itself, and he's not that mobile, so he doesn't have his top 2 targets. I think they're going to be struggling if they can't get the run game established early. So I think that's the key there is just focusing on the run game, and ultimately I think we can get like the Vikings usually jump out to a lead, and McVay obviously Shanahan. KLC coming from McVay's coaching tree. I think there's some gamesmanship that could happen there, but ultimately, I think our defense is just, I think, capable of this task. So
Yeah, I think the Vikings kind of I'm not sure, but they held seemed like they held Montgomery in check last week, but it was really Jahmyr Gibbs who got off in the game. So I feel like they'll be really focused on um Kyron Williams just because there's no real threat. Yeah, David Montgomery had 9 carries for 31 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs had 15 carries for 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I don't think there's much of a threat on the Rams rushing game that I think the Vikings will be worried about. Really, it's really limiting Kyren Williams and the pass game of the Rams because they're still a really, I mean, they're similar passing offense statistically than Minnesota in terms of passing yards per game. So
Hmm.
I could see, that also presenting some issues with the way, I'm sure Matthew Stafford's seen it all to this point in terms of disguises and everything like that. And we've seen some quarterbacks have success against Brian Flores' as a defense and those things. So like, do the Vikings have a plan B in that regard when quarterbacks do know how to,
Right.
go against that? And they didn't really show that too much in the game against the Detroit Lions, but I think eventually they kind of did when they got more pressure on Goff, forced a couple of fumbles on Goff. So I think it's really going to be about like not being too one-dimensional in your plan of attack because you're going against a veteran quarterback who, regardless of the weapons, can still find ways to take advantage of opposing defenses. So I think the Vikings are going to have to be disciplined in this game, not to get too ahead of themselves, because they're going to have to be on this stretch of all these games with their bye already being out the way. So yeah, it's going to be important for them not to, lose sight of the important things and get a win and then have that long break. And this is a game where like I doubt the Vikings want to bring out TJ Hawkinson or Dalton Reisner into this game. I mean, I probably wouldn't with the long break. So you're gonna really need to, come through and make sure all those guys come to play offensively and defensively because I think there was just a point in the game where the Vikings didn't respond to the adversity. And if adversity comes in this game, like how are you going to respond? We've seen it against the Packers. The Vikings didn't respond well in the second half at all. They got like 3 points, outscored what 29-3 or something in the second half. Like you need to be able
Yeah.
to respond to adversity. We've talked about the Vikings not playing from behind, and they were finally playing from behind in the Detroit game. Didn't go out into their favor. So respond to the adversity if it comes, and just be ready for everything that can come because it is a road game. It is maybe some emotions behind it. Kevin O'Connell's first game back in LA. Who knows? But yeah, primetime game, you want to make sure that you come out with the win, build on this momentum. Don't let the Lions have too much of a advantage over you in the North with it being already so competitive. So yeah,
Right.
I'm predicting the Vikings to win this game, be a little bit more comfortably than one might expect because the defense of the Rams is allowing a lot of yards per game. I think the Vikings can have a day offensively, but what are you guys predicting out of this one?
Yeah, I really like what you're saying. Just ultimately, harping on the fact that this is the first loss of the year. How do you bounce back from, like you mentioned, adversity? It's up to us to really showcase that. And I think it's a little worrisome coming from a fan's perspective because we haven't seen that before. And I hope that that's not the feeling in the locker room as well, right? So I like the idea of like their defense, heightening and taking it up a notch. Um, Coming into the Rams, and yeah, their defense is definitely something that we can run up. So I do think the Vikings are going to win. I just for score wise, I would say somewhere around like 27 to like 17 or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys covered mostly all the points that were to be said about this game. I personally think that the Vikings are going to win. I am concerned about the physicality of that team right now, just based on a short week away. Just played the Lions. So I mean, it's gonna be a lower scoring game. I think Sean McVay knows KOC and he knows his offense, and they know each other because they run the same system. So it's gonna be way more low scoring than what people think. It's probably gonna be like a 20 to 17 ball game, maybe 17-14 ball game. Vikings sneak on top with a late field goal by that clutch kicker they got.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think both coaches know each other and know what they want to do. So
He doesn't know Flores though.
that is true. But there is a lot of tape now. So
Yeah.
Good points, and definitely, yeah, I think the Vikings having a kicker like Reichard is so clutch because they've missed that consistency out of their kickers really for so long.
I feel like
And
they've always had good kickers, but like when it comes down to a big game, that's when they choke out, and then
I
they
mean,
just
they've
don't look.
they've had like mediocre kickers, to be honest, like Dan Bailey, mediocre at the point where we got him.
I think he was pretty good. He was
Pretty
above
meh.
average.
He
Blair
was
Walsh was looking
well,
like Well, right.
That's what I'm talking about. Blair Walsh, Ryan Longwell. That's what the type of kickers I like. Elite kickers at the time. Blair Walsh was elite for a period of time. Longwell was elite for a period of time. I think that's what Will Reichard can be, and that's what I'm sure the Vikings when they drafted Daniel Carlson thought he was going to be, which he is now, but obviously gave up on him too soon. That's kind of what I like, not like those mid-tier kind of kickers like Greg Joseph, Ty Forbath, Dan Bailey. It's just like you're limited in terms of what you're going to get consistency wise, and you can't always rely on those guys. Um, and sometimes they just might miss kicks that they really shouldn't
Trust
miss,
me. I
but
know a lot
they'll
Right.
make the
about
kicks that like you're surprised with. It's weird.
I know a lot about Greg Joseph because he's filling in for the Giants or Graham Gano, and he missed like two kicks against the Bengals on Sunday night. Like it was
Yeah.
beyond. But
Can't be doing that.
Didn't he? Yeah, he was in a kicking battle with the Packers kicker and couldn't even beat him out. No
And the
offense.
Packers kicker stinks,
No offense,
Carlson,
but
or is it?
how are you losing to the Packers kicker? Like
Oh
whoever that
man.
dude was. Now they got rid of him, but like, come on now.
hmm,
Anyways, that's a whole nother conversation. They got a new kicker now. They beat the Texans off a game winning field goal with McManus, so they should be good. But going into the upset picks for this week 8, I'll let you guys go first. Who you guys' picks for this week?
um, so I was looking at it. I want to go Cowboys over 49ers. They're coming off a bye week. They've gotten a lot of scrutiny, backs against the wall. The 49ers don't have a lot of good things going for them. And for some reason, on all the booking websites, the Cowboys are underdogs. They're like, I don't even know how many points, but it was like plus 185 when I seen it. So they're underdogs and they're coming off a bye. They're going to get a little bit healthier. I think Deron Bland might come back. I think this is a perfect time in prime time to make a statement and say, hey, the Cowboys are back for now, against a beat up
Hmm.
49ers team. And I also like Tampa Bay over Atlanta, knowing that Mike Evans is out and Chris Godwin's out. I think that three-headed backfield could do some damage against Atlanta, and no one's going to see it coming. So yeah, those are my two upset picks.
Yeah, I absolutely love those. I'm not sure who's being called on this game. Eagles or Bengals. Do you guys know which one? Because
Yeah.
yeah,
So
what's the line on it?
Eagles are underdogs by 1.5.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm on a Bengals hating crusade right now. So I've just been what I'm seeing, I guess, from the defense, it just doesn't seem up to par. This could be a straight shootout. I love what the Eagles are doing on the ground. I think he's catching the grooves, that bad man Saquon, and that team is looking a little bit better now that AJ Brown is back. Um, so this could be a big fun shootout game, but I have the Eagles upsetting the Bengals here, and also just stay tuned to the AFC North matchup between the Ravens and the Browns. Browns, after their quarterback gets injured, the fans start booing, and that does something to your, to your locker room. And if you can, their defense is, elite. They can play elite at times, I should say. And if they can really step up in this matchup that they know far too well, and Winston can give you, more touchdowns than laughable moments. I think the Browns have a good case to be upsetting the Ravens, but the Ravens have just been playing so dominant this year. I don't know if this is the game, this is their get right game by any means, but just the motivation and the momentum in that locker room, your quarterback falling and getting booed by the fans, that combination does something to a locker room. So I'm curious to see how they bounce back for sure.
I think just seeing Nick Chubb come back and then score that touchdown last week,
Right.
that he's like the heart to that team. So him being fully healthy now, I think that will definitely give him a boost in morale on both
For
sides of the
sure.
ball for sure.
I completely agree.
For me, I'm gonna go with the Cardinals upsetting the Dolphins. The Cardinals had a big time win, last second win against the Chargers on Monday night.
What is
And
the spread on that?
okay, so the Dolphins are favored by 3.5.
Hmm, wow.
And that's obviously due to Tua returning. They've struggled to look impressive without him. So Tua returning, that's a whole different ballgame. As we know, they look like an entirely different team with Tua in there. But I think the Cardinals are getting a little bit more momentum. They're a very inconsistent team that you don't know what to expect from. They can win those games like they did against San Fran and LA Chargers, but they'll lose a game like they did against the Packers at Lambeau. So this is another road game. I can see them winning this one, honestly. I feel like it might be a little bit of maybe a game or two where the Dolphins might not have it right away, especially if Tua returns and it's just not there yet. But then again, they could come out firing and, put up a lot of points. I'm going to say that this is going to be my upset pick just because I feel like this could be the game where Marvin Harrison, I think he's yet to break out really. He might have, had a really good game, I think, in his second game of his career. But I think this could
Mhm.
be a game where he really takes control and gets the targets and, plays really well. And then that goes along with their other weapons like Trey McBride and James Conner. I think they could have a really good game defensively as well, too. I like what they're doing. And then another potential one that actually could see happening on, a low key level is the Jaguars winning at home against the Packers. I feel like the Packers, they're a very mistake prone team that they're able to get out of those mistakes just because of how good they are. But I think,
Mhm.
Jordan Love, he's due to throw a pick at least one a game at this point. And I could see the Jaguars using that momentum at home coming off of the win they had against the Patriots in London and capitalizing on those things. The Jaguars are also a team that's due for an upset win at least a
Right.
year, especially at home. So I could see this one being the game where it actually goes in their favor.
Solid picks.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So again, episode 99 in the books. I appreciate you guys as always coming on through all these episodes that we've had. And as we mentioned in the past or before the recording, definitely got to have a NBA pod soon with the season starting. So yeah, look forward
Yes,
to
sir.
it. Any last thoughts before we sign out here?
Super
Yeah,
quick question for you guys.
go ahead.
Who is winning Rookie of the Year?
NBA?
No,
I'm not
NFL.
playing. I'm not NFL. Uh, honestly, it's gonna be Jaden Daniels. Are you saying offensive or defensive? Offensive. It,
Overall,
oh, I mean, I don't think they do overall though.
They
they
don't
don't
do
do.
overall. They do
No,
offense or defense. I think Jaden's pretty stamped, to be honest. Either
Jaden is
way.
stamped, but Caleb
Caleb
Williams,
could be right
he's
there.
doing well.
Yeah.
He got it going.
Caleb is
Brock
doing a lot better
Bowers.
than I thought.
No, no one's feeling Brock Bowers.
it's gonna be a quarterback.
It's going to be a quarterback.
I hate quarterback.
Justin Herbert beat
Yeah.
out Justin Jefferson
Yep.
in his rookie campaign, and that was actually just gross activity because JJ did what he did with playing without playing game one and game two. But yeah, they love quarterbacks for this
How
award.
about defense?
Defensively,
Um,
just taking a look at this stuff, seeing anybody that stands out.
Dallas Turner. Oh,
He's not even
Nah,
basic
respectfully,
play.
no.
no, I'm definitely joking.
I hope so. Nah, but uh, I feel like there's some dudes I just really haven't watched. I've heard some good things about Latu from the Colts. Um, I've heard some good things about Kenyon Mitchell for the Eagles. Um, Terran Arnold's not really up there right now, personally. But yeah, I couldn't give you one defensively because I mean this draft right here is just offensive players until Latu's pick at 15. So I think Latu's played well, but yeah, that's what I would say. I don't know. How about you, Yosef, for defensive?
Yeah, I'm not sure to be honest.
Oh, I actually had it kind of accurate. Latu and Kenyon Mitchell are the top two in terms of odds. Oh, and
Oh, okay.
Jared Verse, who is
Oh
Oh,
on
yeah,
the,
he's good.
what team is Jared Verse on?
Rams.
Rams, yeah. So 19th overall pick in the draft. So yeah,
He might cause some problems to Sam Darnold. We'll see.
I mean we do have the best tackles in the league, but
That's true.
Mr. Christian Darrisaw. That dude is a demon. He does something crazy like every year, every week, I feel like.
yeah, he's definitely he's deserving of that payday.
Yeah, for sure. I cannot believe he became when he became. Like Like we talked about kickers with the Vikings. Can we talk about O-line? When's the last time we had a decent O-line? Like pre-Case
Yeah.
Keenum.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
I want to ask you guys real quick, just MVP this far into the season.
crazy. But I got Lamar. But like up until like if you're asking me what I've seen on in the NFL up until this point, it has to be Lamar. I've seen like Patrick Mahomes talks. Get that out of here. I don't care. Like his defense is the reason why he's winning. Like this man, he might win a third MVP, Lamar Jackson. But if you ask me who my pick would be if I had to put money on it, I think I'd still put my money on Josh Allen just because I think he has a heroic season left in front of him, just based on what the team can do around it.
I'm gonna throw a wild one in there. Let it settle in though, right?
Yeah,
Jared Goff.
exactly. Jared Goff. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
He looks
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I think
I
that
can see that.
here in Seattle definitely established him to be like, okay, we see you. He
Yeah,
was
make
completion percentage. I think he had a perfect completion percentage against the Vikings too for like the first half, maybe into the third.
Yep.
sheesh.
Yeah. I think Goff or Lamar, I mean, those are two of the best offensive right now in the league. Um, and like we got to give Goff his credit. We always give credit to his surrounding cast. We did that with him in the Rams. We did that with him in the Lions and Ben Johnson and all his weapons. But I think we got to give him his credit too. Like he's a really good quarterback. And I think he's deserving of some praise. Uh, this would be like something like you would never really expect when you make that trade to send him over to Detroit, trade over Stafford. You're not expecting Detroit to get an MVP caliber quarterback in return, but man, the strides that this team has made in his tenure is insane right now, and I think they deserve all the praise. I mean, I was watching that game against the Vikings and Lions and Vikings. I'm just like, wow, this is like this dude is not throwing an incompletion. Like he's not bothered at all by anything. Like I remember, I think I think it was Grenard who almost got to him, on this one play, and he just didn't look bothered at all. Like his pocket presence is like I think he's an elite quarterback. I think we got to give him some praise there too. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about. Yeah, it's just
He's like,
really hard for
he's
me
like
to believe.
Lamar Mahomes, Allen.
Yeah, I
Have you
can
guys been
believe.
watching
Yeah,
any college prospects for quarterbacks next year or nah?
I've
yeah,
watched a little bit of Cam Ward, obviously Shador,
yeah.
Milrow a little bit, not so much Carson Beck really. Yeah, I mean outside of Arizona State, I mean, yeah, not really.
What are your thoughts? Who do you think goes one at quarterback?
I don't know how the league is perceiving all this, but like when I look at the best college quarterback right now, I will have to say Cam Ward is that guy. What he's doing with Miami is insane. He's also a
Hmm.
quarterback that just has a great pocket presence and really knows when and when not to assert himself in a game. I think he's just a really elite sort of player. It's just a matter of how do the NFL scouts perceive the number one overall pick.
Hmm.
Shador is obviously another guy that gives you, that marketability. It's like it comes down to that combo kind of like in the NBA draft with LaMelo or versus Anthony Edwards. Like, who do you want to draft? The guy with more marketability at the time, or the guy who might look more proven? I think that's not to discount anything that Shador has done, but I think that's just also another factor you look into when you look at a quarterback that you're selecting, and he has the best of both of those things. But Cam Ward is an elite prospect. He's really risen the ranks this season because I think preseason it was really about Carson Beck in Georgia, but he's kind of fallen off this year. So yeah, I'd give it to one of those two. I'm not really sure what the Heisman odds are, but I mean I know Ashton Genty at Boise State and then Travis Hunter too, but I think it's gonna be a quarterback that goes number one.
I think the market's so messed up nowadays that like even if that quarterback is not the best like prospect within like 15, 20 picks, he's going one. Like if he's the best quarterback available. Back then it was like best available, you draft him regardless of position sometimes. So now it's like people are going to be throwing away second round, third round picks just to jump up to one. So we'll see. I think Shador Sanders goes to the Raiders though. I think
Heard
Tom
about
Brady,
that.
Tom Brady being an owner
Yep.
and them working out together. I can see it happening. I think his comp is more like a Teddy Bridgewater, but
Yeah, I like
we'll
that.
see.
I like that combo. I've seen multiple. Yeah, I've just seen two mock drafts here that just have him going to the Raiders. But I think, yeah, that's for sure a good pick. I like, I like Shador as a player. I don't know how it's going to work out in the league. Like, obviously he has offensive line concerns in Colorado. That's been something that he's had to deal with.
Right.
But I feel like he's another, like, he can be really good. Not really a rusher, kind of like how you mentioned with Teddy Bridgewater comp. So that might affect him. But in terms of like passing ability, I like what he can do. But I really like Cam Ward's game a lot. I see a mock draft here. Teams view him highly probably. So it's really him, Milrow, and Shador. So yeah.
Where do they have those quarterbacks going, if you don't mind me asking?
Say that again.
Where do they have those guys
Okay.
going?
So they have Milrow going number 4 overall, Cam Ward number 6, and number 10 would be Shador.
Is Milrow really like that? Like I know he's a freak of nature athlete wise, like kind of like a Joe Milton, but I had questions about it throwing.
I feel like he's probably like an inconsistent quarterback, but like when he has those games like he had against Georgia, it's like wow. But then he'll follow that up with the game against Vanderbilt, where it's like statistically it always looks good, but like you want a quarterback that's decisive in those moments as well, that can really get your team out of certain situations. Um, and I don't think he always brings that to the team. So really, it's just about consistency, and I don't think it's like crazy that he's viewed as the best quarterback in the draft as well. Like he's a really good prospect. I think he's going to be really good. But I don't know. I just like the intangibles a little bit more for Cam Ward and Shador personally.
It's a fair take. I think Jalen Milrow throwing to future Heisman with Ryan Williams too, so probably
Oh,
makes him way better.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Same with Shador Sanders. I'm not too high on him. I don't like his ego and his egotistical side of things. I think he won't work on some teams, and some teams he will. And I think he gets helped out a lot by Travis Hunter. It makes him look good. That's just what it is. I think he beats up on bad teams, and then when the good, decent teams come, he kind of kind
Has
of
no
blames
line.
the line. So
Yeah. It's hard to evaluate him without the O line.
I like his demeanor in some ways. Like he takes it personal when people like critique him rather. Cam Newton, I remember a couple weeks ago, like try to say what's up to him. He's like, "Hey, I remember what you said." It's like, I mean, he's like they say, he stands on business with a lot of those things because he hears all those things. He mentioned, I think in a post game conference, like they're like, "How do you stay grounded or whatever?" And he's just like, "I remember that I was once a kid in the HBCU who couldn't do it on a Division 1 level." So he always remembers what people say about him, and he takes that with him and like um hard on his sleeve sort of approach, which I can respect out of that. But yeah, when it comes to like calling out teammates and other things like that, I can see where that can be a problem with certain organizations who obviously want to control these players. But then there's just some players like him that you can't control. I mean, literally his dad was just, I mean, I said his dad, obviously Deion Sanders was talking about where he wants Shador and Travis Hunter to end up in the drafts and stuff like that. So like kind of like a little LeVar Ball situation, you know what I mean? So some teams don't like that, but I can see a team like the Raiders who'll be all for that sort of thing, and they've already had discussions I've seen about him ending up in a Raiders jersey. Like I've seen interactions with him and Mark Davis before, so I definitely see that pairing in the future. It makes sense, market and all that. That's the sort of quarterback you want.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. But yeah, anything else you want to talk about for 30 more minutes? No, I'm just playing. All right, we'll end it here. But yeah, appreciate you guys. Like I said, coming on the pod again, Yossef. Happy birthday.
Yes, sir.
And yeah, we'll see everyone for the next episode. Episode 99 in the books. Peace.